Helen Keller, the picture that I wanted you to see, was known for being born without the ability to speak, hear, or see. What people remember is how Anne Sullivan, a teacher of handicapped children, helped Helen understand sign language as her way to communicate. The movie was amazing. Patty Duke and Anne Bancroft gave what I thought Academy Award performances in The Miracle Worker. Helen Keller, though, went on to be a social activist, and she made an incredible impression on others throughout her life. Later in her life, Helen was asked by a reporter interviewing her, was there anything worse than being blind? She thought about it for a moment, and then she said in her sign language, yes, there is something worse than being blind. Having eyesight with no vision. In life, it's very hard to accomplish very much if there are some aspects to you that you feel hold you back, such as having a disability. Some disabilities are obvious, others are not. So I've titled the sermon, Stand Up, Even If You Stand Alone. The question I'd ask each and every person here is, do you follow the pack? Or are you that sole individual who walks along the path of something called the road less traveled? Sadly, studies show that most people in community are followers. Few people are leaders who will stand up even if they stand alone. I remember the story of Rosa Parks, and so do you. Everybody knows who Rosa Parks was. She rode the bus every day, number 2857. The Montgomery Bus Company required by law that if a white person were to come on the bus looking for a seat, people of color must stand up so the white person could sit. People in the movement and around the world thought those unjust laws were no laws at all. The reason that Rosa Parks is so admired is that on December 1st, 1955, she sat down and the whole world stood up to the demonic sickness of racial discrimination. I think it's very interesting that today, 68 years later, people remember the name of Rosa Parks, who broke the law, but not the name of the bus driver, who had the law on his side. His name was James Blake, and at the time, James could say without hesitation he was merely upholding the law when he directed Rosa Parks to stand up and relinquish her seat on that bus so that a white person half her age could sit in her seat. The documentation is clear. Parks is remembered for her courageous, nonviolent civil disobedience. She was told to get up out of her seat and let that white man who was half her age sit down in her seat, and she said no. The bus driver, on the other hand, remains a mystery. Who was this man upholding the law, who said he had the law on his side? Do you remember a long, long time ago that you actually stood up for something and you found yourself standing alone? Well, 400 years in our nation's history, people of color have endured the worst cases of racial discrimination and prejudice by white people, simply because of the color of their skin. And I said many times that change could actually be good and that everybody benefits when they acknowledge that everything is changing anyway. Now, the only thing about change that you can be sure of is that it's going to change. That change is constantly happening. Oddly enough, in the year 2023, there are still people today who believe white citizens in the United States are superior to those with other skin colors. Rosa Parks sat down, and the whole world stood up. Some people are defeated when life throws them a bad break. They crumble when their dreams don't work out. Are you feeling me? I think most people understand what I'm saying. People feel they're strong when in fact they're weak. I never ever thought that I would lose him. I never thought that I would be the one to make that decision. I never thought that I would go through the trauma that I felt, but I did. And when you get to that point, you're confronting your own mortality, your own mistakes in life, or your beliefs about life, beliefs about other people. So then people come up with some kind of justification to keep in place laws that guarantee that their lives are in a place of superiority over other people of other races. It took profound courage, more than I can even think of, to stand up when many times people saw themselves standing alone. What then was their motive for breaking the law, for being hauled off to jail, for being processed? Well, Martin Luther King Jr. would say to people that followed his marches, as well as his philosophy of equality, that they have a great opportunity. In society, they could disprove those people who consider that their skin color was inferior to their own. And whatever position they could get was also inferior in productivity and in salary. What was that opportunity? I think it deals in the area of the quality of work and not in the status of one's job. In the new age, we will be forced to compete with people, he said, of all races and nationalities. Therefore, we cannot merely be good Negro teachers, good Negro doctors, good Negro ministers, or good Negro skilled laborers. We can set out to do a good job, irrespective of race, and do it so well that nobody could do it better. Whatever your life's work is, do it well. Even if it does not fall into the category of one of those so-called big professions, do it well. A man should do his job so well that the living, the dead, and the unborn couldn't do it better. Called your lot to be a street sweeper. Sweep those streets like Michelangelo painted pictures, like Shakespeare wrote poetry, like Beethoven composed music. Sweep streets so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth will have to pause and say, here lived a great street sweeper who swept his job well. Now, if you can't be a pine on the top of the hill, be a scrub in the valley, but be the best little scrub by the side of the hill. Be a bush if you can't be a tree. If you can't be a highway, just be a trail. If you can't be the sun, be a star. It isn't by size that you win or fail. Be the best at whatever you are. Yeah, I would have to admit that some people are defeated when life throws them a bad break. They crumble when their dreams don't work out. And they fold when they're dealt a raw deck of cards. They moan and groan and they make everyone around them miserable because they suffer a few setbacks, disappointments. I don't think, I absolutely know, I will never get over losing him. Never. I'll never be able to go beyond that moment when I didn't have him. Well, I remember my mother always telling me, don't slouch, don't hunch, when I walked. Posture gives clues to self-esteem, she'd say. No, Ma, she would always say. And my youngest son, Jeremy, tells him an experience. He and his buddies, alumni buddies, were on their way to a party. And they were in the subway. They came off the subway, and a beggar asked them for some money. And my son immediately gave him $2. And his friend said, don't give him any money. He's just going to buy booze. To which my son said to his alumni friend, isn't that what we're going to do with the money? Now, I'm sure that my mother was spot on when she said people who feel good about themselves walk differently than people who do not. And one thing I love so much about the Unitarian Universalist Church is that they believe no one should be denied dignity because of a physical, emotional, or social condition. Neither should anyone be discriminated against because of their income, or their education, or their status in society. That's why you came here today, because you believe that. Every person, according to Unitarian Universalism philosophy, is a person of worth and a person of dignity. When I first came to this church, I visited a couple that you know. They're not here today. I've been checking. I've been looking to see if they're here. Ralph and Judy Lehman. And I had a truly lovely visit with them in their home, and I thought it fascinating when I was talking with them. Judy they just casually said, "Oh, yeah, Ralph is a neurosurgeon." Are you really a brain surgeon? And I'll never forget it. Ralph shrugged his shoulders and said, it's a job. True story. I didn't make that up. Now, have you ever needed, and I know you have, a plumber or an electrician? Well, usually an honest, licensed, experienced plumber or an electrician or even a handyman is very hard to find. Would you agree with that? And at one of my own high school reunions, I met a dear friend who hung out with me when I was in high school. I wasn't always this refined, by the way. Well, we lost touch when we were in our jobs, and everything. And I asked him, what profession did you finally settle into? Because I was curious. And he told me, I'm an ordained plumber. Now, that's a healthy way, I thought, to look at yourself and your work. Nobody should ever apologize for the wages they're earning. As long as it's honest and as long as it's true. Some of you have jobs that I admire and envy, like being a hospice social worker or being somebody that helps people in a time of caring, working for the ACLU and helping people who are down on their luck and down in life to come up out of there and to be able to see a future for themselves. Well, we have a lot of people here as a thank for their. But if you're a plumber and if you're an electrician, your income is through the roof. Now, I know that because I can't find a good plumber. Now, I was reading about the life of a man named Tucker Church. I like the name, Tucker Church. And his struggle with to live a life like everybody else was doing. He had cerebral palsy. And in school, the coach of the basketball team, because, I guess they felt embarrassed, him trying to go up and down the court. They kicked him off the team. Nice guy, that coach. But years later, doctors at the Houston, Texas Shriners Hospital, they found a treatment that treated his leg problems, Tucker's. Now, he had 3 or 4 surgeries and hours and hours and hours of physical therapy. And he was determined. And when you know, he walked out of that Shriners Hospital 6 inches taller. I couldn't believe it. Can you imagine? He walked so straight and tall, took a lot of work. And few people realized he had ever had cerebral palsy. And he came into contact with people who could help him. And that's pretty straightforward. He didn't mince words because he was determined. And he thought that he wanted to improve his physical body. And he did. See, one of the things I like the most about Unitarian Universalists is that they don't mince words. Would you agree with me? or go around the barn to convey what they wish for themselves or others. Unitarian Universalists believe that nobody should suffer. That's pretty good. We share the pain of an imperfect fallen world, but it's not anybody's will that anybody should suffer. Now, we don't know why there's suffering. You ever wonder about that? Why? Why is there... There was a book called Why Good Things Happen to Bad... Why Bad Things Happen to Good People. Get it right. Yeah, by Rabbi Kushner. His son had leukemia. And, why did his son get leukemia? We don't know. There's many things we don't know. And we admit we don't know them. But there's one thing we do know. Every human being has a right to walk tall. Unitarian Universalism is a belief to warn people of low self-esteem not to put limitations on themselves. Medical science is producing cures all the time. I stand before you, almost, 70. I'm almost 70. I have 3 stents. There. Now, they didn't have stents years ago. I might be dead if they didn't invent that. But there they are. And I have to take medication every day. Medical science keeps producing these things. What we need is patience and perseverance to continue the journey with that kind of resolve. As Jesse Jackson has said, it may not be your fault if you're down, but it is your fault if you don't get back up. So take the advice of my mother. Don't slouch. And don't accept passively your faith, but be the creator of your fate. And one more thing I think people could be aware of and ought to be aware of, that it takes enormous courage to stand up, even if you stand alone. It's always the right time to do the right thing. I marvel at the resolve of people who feel that. Despite grim diagnoses or prognosis of doctors, they believe they're personally going to do something to improve their physical condition in their lives. How many times have we heard in the news stories of strangers or teachers or students or co-workers stepping up to the plate so they might be able to donate a kidney to somebody they don't even know? They just know that person needs a kidney or they're going to die. Saving their lives. How many times have you heard? I've heard it a lot. And I always say to myself, I can't do that. I wouldn't do that. I bet you I would do it. But I don't want to do that. But I would do it. How many people here, you can raise your hand, know your own blood type? Really? I got to get busy. I don't know my... Really? You know your own blood type? That's great. Well, I don't. And the rarest blood type I know of, anybody here AB negative? No, see, AB negative is really rare. Well, there was a young mother and father came to church one time, and I spoke with them, and there was a heaviness about them. And they made me ask them, is something wrong? Yes, well, our daughter needs a blood transfusion, and in 1 or 2 days, if she doesn't get it, the doctors say she could die. No, that's not. What do you mean die? I didn't like the way they approached that, because it's not the way I would approach it. I would go right to the wall. Would you mind if I asked some people if they might be AB negative? I know, the congregation. No, we don't mind. We don't mind at all. Well, wouldn't you know? we found somebody with AB negative. The blood transfusion took place, and their daughter lived to adulthood, still living today. Now, was that a coincidence? We don't know. All we know is that these coincidences happen quite often for people of faith and resolve. Healing of anyone involves their combined emotional, spiritual, and physical being. I'll give you this much. There's so much we don't know. There's so much we don't understand. I can't imagine that he's not with me anymore. But I do know that people with faith and resolve are striving to will themselves into healing and wholeness. I do know that. Now, you and I are going to have setbacks. I guarantee it. Some of you have already had some. No doubt about it. But are you able to stand up, even if you must stand alone? I know you want to answer yes. But would that be an honest answer? Thank you.